Hamas adapted their tactics as the war went on, and when they realized that the Israeli IDF was going house to house, they then did the evacuation themselves. They pulled the civilians out and then booby-trapped every single building. So the destruction of a lot of buildings, more bombs have been dropped on Gaza than the number of people who've been killed in Gaza. Why, you've used the phrase indiscriminate bombing repeatedly. Why do you say it's indiscriminate?
Well, I'll give you an example. Say they get information there's one Hamas terrorist. Well, I saw Dave Smith use this analogy, so let me give him the credit for it. If somebody murdered one of your family, okay? Horrible hypothetical, but let's assume this has happened. And you get told that one of the people who was responsible is living in a tower block with 150 people in it. Do you think it's justified to go and blow up the whole tower block and kill 149 innocent people as you kill the one person who is responsible for the loss you suffered?
There's a calculation in the laws of war where there has got to be some proportionality. There's got to be some taken of account.
Do you think there's been any proportionality now in Israel's response?
Well, what I
mean, 1,200 people got killed.
What I'm asking you
over the 7th.
Why is proportionate their favorite word?
Are up to maybe as many as 100,000.
But Piers, with all respect, that's a terrible argument. Because,
is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's a terrible argument.
I don't think it is.
It is, because way more Germans were killed at the end of World War II than British people were killed, and yet we bombed Germany into the ground because we were defeating them, right? I think that is a terrible argument, but I'm trying to find out why you say it's indiscriminate. Indiscriminate means they don't care if they're just bombing a civilian building, they're just trying to flatten Gaza. Is that what you think is happening?
70% of Gaza has been flattened.
Yes.
In what way would you not think that suggests a degree of indiscriminate bombing?
The reason that people would challenge the idea of it being indiscriminate, for example, Andrew Fox, as I mentioned, who has a very nuanced view of this, as we found out, he was saying that when he was in Gaza, what he saw was that Hamas adapted their tactics as the war went on, and when they realized that the Israeli IDF was going house to house, they then did the evacuation themselves. They pulled the civilians out and then booby-trapped every single building. So the destruction of a lot of buildings is evidence of the fact that a lot of them are booby-trapped, and that's why they're being destroyed.
I'm sure some of them were.
He made the point that more bombs have been dropped on Gaza than the number of people who've been killed in Gaza, which kind of tells you that it's his argument, not indiscriminate. So that's the only reason I'm asking. And I'm genuinely just wondering.
I've read some of the 5-6 times as many bombs have been dropped in totality than the total power of the 2 nuclear bombs dropped in Japan. I mean, you know, what is indiscriminate? To me, you can argue that indiscriminate means you don't care at all. I wouldn't go as far as that.
Okay.
But I would say that the way they have gone about targeting sometimes individual members of Hamas that they believe are in a cafe and they just blow the whole cafe to pieces, that shows in my opinion, a reckless disregard for civilian life.
I think first of all, has he not seen how every single one of our targeted eliminations outside of Gaza, okay, every time we've gone after Iran, every time we went after anybody in Hezbollah, it was so precise and accurate. And there's multiple reasons for this. Number one, we send evacuation orders, okay? We tell people, hey, we are coming to this building, by the way, jeopardizing the mission, right? So that's a huge factor that he's totally missing here. The fact that we tell the people to leave and they don't. But also the fact that we're so precise everywhere else. We're just not precise in Gaza. We just suddenly shift tactics. No, we are precise. And so he must be missing something in his argument in which he's saying, oh, we just, blow up 150 people in a building. Wait a second, Piers. We send evacuation orders. We specifically target Hamas. They're the ones who hide in civilian centers. And yes, sometimes you have to make that hard decision. But if you look at the ratio of civilian casualties to terrorists, it's the lowest that it's ever been in a war history, ever. And all of these are facts that he just forgets because he wants to pull this narrative out of, look, Israel just wants to blow up and destroy Gaza. The fact that we've used so many ammunitions is because we didn't do what was done in World War II. We didn't just blow up all of Gaza. We've had to go place by place by place instead of throwing one big thing and causing destruction. That's actually evidence and proof of the fact that we do care about civilian life, that we are careful and that we try to definitively target specific people. Now, if Hamas are going to hang out in a cafe with tons of civilians, despite us wanting everybody to get out, there's a reality to the fact that there's going to be civilian casualties. But just as Konstantin said, there's this thing that we do, that we send our IDF soldiers into booby-trapped houses by Hamas, okay? A big part of the destruction of Gaza. And we jeopardize our own soldiers to make sure that we are not going after civilians in just a massive way, which would be much, much easier. It's the reason the war in Gaza has dragged out so long, whereas in the war in Lebanon has not.
That is around that one person. And again, I come back to the Hezbollah thing. Why is it that they can target Hezbollah and dismantle Hezbollah in such a brilliantly sophisticated surgical strike manner, which does not involve destroying Lebanon or wiping out 100,000 Lebanese people, killing 20,000 Lebanese children?
The answer is because Hezbollah does not use civilians in the same way that Hamas do. Different breed, different type of terror.
Why is it they're capable of that there, but they're completely incapable of any other war strategy here, when most people believe, who know Hamas, that this was all part of Hamas's plan, that they knew when they did what they did, this is what would happen?
Because the argument would be, and by the way, I have family who come from Lebanon, is that Hezbollah are concentrated in one particular part of Lebanon. They're not concentrated.
Well, Israel didn't blow it up.
But if you look at Gaza, it's very, very densely populated, and Hamas are physically embedded within that.
Sure.
They have consciously embedded themselves, as we all know, within the civilians.
Sure.
So it's almost impossible to be able to target them.
But if Hamas is showing such a spectacular disregard for its own civilian life, then I would argue that you should always, if you're in Israel's position as the only democracy in the region, and you've got the biggest military in the region, it's even more incumbent on you not to be as reckless with civilian life as the people that you're going after.
We're not as reckless with civilian life, which is why we've been at war for 2 years, which is why IDF soldiers are dying all of the time, because we are not, because there are evacuation orders continuously throughout this entire time. And again, if you're going to have a terror group that embeds themselves within civilian casualties, why are you shifting the blame from Hamas, from that fact, towards Israel? Why is it always Israel's responsibility? It is not our responsibility, actually, to care for civilian life in Gaza. It isn't. We do it because we are a moral army, but it's not our responsibility. It is our responsibility to eliminate an enemy that is interested in the destruction of our country and of our people, and to do everything in our power to ensure that. But so quickly, so easily, the blame is, listen to what he just said, the blame is shifted from Hamas, who hide and embed themselves in civilian casualties within civilian areas. Instead of focusing on that insane statement and saying, wow, it's amazing that Israel hasn't had to kill all of the civilians of Gaza and hasn't just decided to go with that. Instead of moving that way, they're just saying, look, Israel, why can't it do better?
Then I would argue that you should always, if you're in Israel's position as the only democracy in the region, and you've got the biggest military in the region, it's even more incumbent on you not to be as reckless with civilian life as the people that you're going after.
Look, Piers likes to present himself as this kind of super rational voice, and there is a rationale in it, but watch how quickly he takes such an insane statement, such as, oh look, with Hezbollah, Israel was really, really careful and accurate, but when it came to Hamas, they're just not, because suddenly they don't care about civilian life. That's not true. It's because Hamas are such a wicked and cruel terrorist organization that they're willing to really embed themselves in civilian casualties. And whilst that fact should be the fact that Piers really, really focuses on continuously, try and understand Hamas mentality, try and understand why they're like this and how it's worked against us and against him and against propaganda in the world, he then deflects and removes it and puts it right on Israel, takes the responsibility for keeping the civilians safe on Israel. The question here is not how is Hamas so evil and still in existence, it's why isn't Israel doing a better job at defending civilian casualties? And I'll remind you once again that if we pull back to the statistics, we've had the lowest civilian count to terrorist count ever in a war, because we are super careful and we have continued this war for so long, putting our soldiers' lives on line every single day because we care about civilian lives. And some would claim that that is actually immoral. Someone claimed that it is not okay for us to care more about the Palestinian lives than it is to care about Israeli life. But here, once again, this anti-Israel narrative is the thing that is being pushed out again and again and again. Instead of calling out Hamas for what they are and focusing in on that, it's like, why isn't Israel doing a better job? Why isn't Israel doing a better job? Well, maybe if they were capable of doing a better job in Iran and with Hezbollah, then maybe in Gaza it is something to do with how Hamas operate, and maybe that should be the focus of the argument.